Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. Today I'm continuing my series where I pull characters from gacha games and draw whoever I get. Today's game is Tower of Fantasy, which is an open world MMORPG with combat, cooking, character customization, as well as a bunch of fully voice acted characters you can meet and a story to explore. The game is brand new, and because they're sponsoring the video, they let me play it a little bit early, and I've really been enjoying it so far. So it looks like you're guaranteed to get a character if you pull at least 10 at a time through their gacha system, so I'm going to just pull 10 and see who we get. Oh, okay, so we got our first character. This is Hilda the Terminator. So here's all the weapons I got alongside her. Her design is really cute. Her main two colors, it looks like, are purple and yellow, and then the rest is mainly monochrome on her actual character. She has these like long pants overalls that are white, and she has like splashes of pink paint. So she almost kind of reminds me of like a graffiti artist or like maybe like a DJ. She has kind of a rebellious vibe to her, and the headphones, the way that they're not like on top of her head and rather are like back, kind of reminds me of like some sort of musician. So that's kind of the energy I'm going to go forward with when I draw her in my style. With these types of videos where I'm drawing them into my style from a like anime style, I try to like enhance the qualities of my own art style even more than I normally do, so it should be extra cartoony throughout the video. Anyway, so she has like a turtlenecked kind of just t-shirt underneath with cold shoulder openings on the shoulders, and then she also has like these sort of arm warmer gloves that go up to past her elbows. Her belt's pretty complicated, and I also noticed that she has a lot of like little details. That's pretty common for games like this. Like usually the character designs are just super intricately detailed, and that is definitely the case here. So she also has this little braid I almost forgot to put in. With her color palette, like I said, I mean, it's two main colors that are opposed to each other on the color wheel. This is very classic, like good character design kind of like color scheme where you keep it mainly monochrome, and then you have two opposing colors that sort of play with each other throughout the character design. So that's, yeah, that sort of rhythm really works no matter what style you're drawing her in. And I really tried to enhance the color of her eyes and make them super like pop out and super like interesting looking, because she does have like these reddish, orangish, yellowish eyes. I zoomed in a little bit on her in the game to just make sure that I was doing everything correctly. And I tried to do the shading with sort of a pinkish color to sort of play along with the other like pink accents that are throughout. And then she was all done. All right, now time to do it again. Let's see who we get this time. Oh, Bai Ling. Oh, she's really cool. She kind of looks like a ninja, or she's got like samurai pants. And she, whoa, wow, there's cutouts on the sides. That looks really interesting. I love the borderline like techwear vibe. This game is like set in sort of a post-apocalyptic sci-fi kind of world rather than like a standard fantasy, which is a cool, it's definitely having an effect on the character designs, and I feel like that really comes through with her. She has like almost like a kind of streetwear sort of vibe, which I'm really into. The fact that her face is covered in a mask is really interesting as well. It makes her look a lot more mysterious, I would say. And I tend to really like characters who have a bow and arrow. I don't know why. I have like, I just really like that character. The characters who usually go with that weapon type, I just end up being a fan of a lot, so I might end up being a big fan of Bai Ling. Yeah, so basically her design has some really like poofy parts. Like her pants are really robust towards the knee. That's one of the things that gave it kind of like almost like a samurai vibe, because it reminds me of that silhouette a little bit, especially with the cutouts on the side. And then she has more of like, it almost reminds me of like a pilot's uniform with like the puffy sleeve, and the very neat like button down collar. It's a really interesting mix of aesthetics, and she has a very monochromatic color palette, which I'm gonna have to keep in mind when we get to the coloring stage. There's a lot of really little tiny detail on her. I was like straining my eyes to try to make sure I was capturing everything. These relatively dimensional and thick pockets again are reminding me of like techwear. I don't know if I just have techwear on the brain or if this is really accurate to the character, but yeah, there's like a lot of little details that are making me think of that type of street style. For her actual like coloration as a character, she has a very ashy blonde hair. I think I actually like need to make it a little less warm than this, truthfully, because I think it's even like more silvery than this, and I know that when I put in my warm shading, it's definitely gonna look more blonde. But we'll just have to come to that when we come to it. I exaggerated the cutouts a little bit more on her outfit just because of the way that my characters are proportioned in my character design. I think it looks pretty interesting. And the pleats are actually a really cool detail as well. Sometimes people put pleats in pants like this to help them be more baggy, and I think that's kind of a nice detail considering like it's not real clothes, so they didn't have to do that, but it's one of those things that just makes your characters a lot more believable. Oh, we got a boy this time. This is Zero, negating cube. All right, so his weapon looks very different. This looks a lot more like science magic-y. What is that? That is so interesting. He's actually kind of a short king. I just realized when I was switching between him and some of the girls, so I'll have to keep that in mind while I'm drawing him. And he also has a really cool, his aesthetic is a little different too. It's giving me a streetwear kind of vibe as well, but it's definitely more like post-apocalyptic sci-fi, like almost like a retro anime look to it. His like jacket in particular is giving me a very like warcore sort of energy as well. I'm seeing a lot of street style influence in a lot of these character designs, which is really cool. Particularly with like the way that the vest is structured and the dimensional pockets that are right up front like that. It's definitely reminding me of like almost like sort of combat fashion. And then his goggles and the way his hair is so spiky is definitely reminding me of like old manga designs, which I'm a huge fan of. So I'm trying to make him look relatively small while also being sort of like cool and having a sort of arrogant vibe just based on his voice lines when you pick him. I think he says something like, you can't do anything without me or something like that, so that's what's really going to lead me through when it comes to his personality.
You can't do anything without me!
I had such a hard time drawing him, honestly. He has so many delicate little details on his design, and it was really tricky at first, but I got the hang of it eventually. I love his structured hood. I don't know if it's really a hood, but this like structured piece around his collar that kind of comes up higher towards the back of his head. I think that's a cool design element, and it has some like interesting shape language that you don't often see. And for his color palette, this is a different sort of color palette. It has this like very pulled back khaki kind of color throughout most of it, and then there's these pops of like super like electric purple, which is a much more daring color palette I think than some of the other characters, but it really ends up working for him. I was totally panicking when I was first coloring him because I was like, this is never gonna come together, but somehow it just does. I guess it's because it's like balanced very carefully, like there's only a very small amount of this super vibrant purple, so it ends up sort of blending in and becoming just like these really nice pops of color throughout. Next up, we got Pepper. Pepper is probably the character I was most wishing for, so I was really excited when I got her. So she has this like very cute like pink and white mainly design with these accents of black. I zoomed in on her in the game to just make sure I was getting everything right. She has these long blonde twin tails and a little off-center nurse hat. I just think it's so cute. She's obviously like a healer type character. And I was really excited to draw her in my style. I love drawing cutesy stuff, so like these types of like over-the-top cute character designs are really fun for me, and I like seeing it blended with sci-fi aesthetic. So like you can see her little like side skirt thing that she has down on the bottom. It's actually like a rubbery like translucent pink, and it's it's just I don't know, it's kind of fun because like a lot of these like hyper feminine character designs rely on like more like gothic Lolita kind of looks, or yeah, like more high fantasy like princess kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see this aesthetic paired with like, you know, hard sci-fi kind of aesthetics too. So like the one piece that she's wearing and the little barcode and everything, I just think it's really fun and it all goes together really well. I really played up the shape of her pigtails. She almost kind of looked like Hatsune Miku for a second there, just because I went so nuts with the curve of the pigtails. And again, I really love the off-center nurse hat. I just think it's so adorable. The thing that I noticed while I was doing all of these characters was just like the restraint on the color palettes. It's something that I think I'm trying to keep in mind in the future, and this is something you guys can do too. If there's a game or anything that you really admire the character designs of, try just drawing the characters and pay attention to things like that. Like these characters' designs are so intricate, but I think the reason that they don't become like completely visually polluted is because of this restraint in the color palette. I tried to give her lots of little blushy parts, especially like on her face and her shoulders, and I just tried to like do some like soft gradients in a couple places just to soften her up a little bit even more. And I think she turned out really well. Her eye color actually kind of surprised me. I thought it was pink for some reason, but it's actually like this gold color. The last character we're going to be drawing as part of this gacha drawing challenge is named Nemesis. Now, Nemesis is actually an artificial version of another character you meet early on named Shirley. She transforms on the battlefield. I really like how in her character select, she's like swinging on these like electrical cords. It's just kind of interesting, and I love her like super classic looking plug suit sort of design. It reminds me of like Evangelion and like some of my favorite classic science fiction sort of like anime designs. And of course I'm a sucker for like a side bang that covers part of the eye, so those are the things I'm going to mainly be focusing on. She has actually like a pretty soft, calm voice, so I didn't go too crazy with like her posing. She seems like relatively a somewhat subdued character, which wasn't my first like guess about her. But yeah, I just tried to really focus on like the curvature and everything of the plates that are on the front of her suit. She has a mixture of a suit that looks like somewhat soft, like it's sort of spandexy, and then it has like these harder like plasticky plates, almost like some kind of like more modern armor. And her hair is just like very long and flowing, so I tried to sort of like have that fan out behind her and sort of make her whole like proportions look more slight and everything. She definitely has a lot to keep in mind, but I didn't find her quite as hard to draw as some of the other characters, just because it's so easy to see all the details on her design because it's constantly switching colors. She's really switching between white, black, and red. It's a very like, it almost reminds me of like a fancy car or something. Like something about the way that they designed her really makes me think of like an automobile for some reason. I think it is mainly the color palette, but it's also like the curvature of her design. Like those white plates like remind me of a car. I just don't know how to explain it. One of the coloring tricks I've been using lately is actually selecting like whole sections, like not contiguous, but you select everything that's the same color and then apply just a subtle gradient to it. That can be a really quick way to create dimension really, really fast if you need to. And then when you add on your more like specific cell shading, it'll look a little bit more like organically flowing into it, rather than being like super, super harsh segments of shading. I know some people have trouble with cell shading looking too harsh, so I just wanted to mention that because that's something that I've noticed that's been really helping me. So after putting down a couple bright little highlights on her, she was done, and here are the 5 characters I was able to pull and draw in this gacha challenge. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and thank you to Tower of Fantasy for supporting the channel. If you guys would like to check out the game, there is a link in the description, and if you download it now, you can get 50 draws and an SSR selector for free. And let me know what your favorite character design was. I think mine is definitely Pepper. Huge thanks to my wonderful patrons, including Katsuki, Noose Milk, Strawberry Andromeda, Raven's Crow, Zocelot, Winterheart, Harold Bird, Jabber Dabber Doo, Teddy Spaghetti, Gender Was Stolen, For Spookable, it's Jamal, Kay, Rodrigo, Momilk, Kadaria, Deadly Nightshade Art, Astral Fox Art, Middle Z, Lily Allure, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Michael Lavally, Cutie Pie, Ruin Raincrow, Ice Cream Pal, Kola, Your Boy ST, JJ Jade, and of course, Lib 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 Lib.